Hello and welcome to the channel. This is the Inner Empathy channel, and it talks about spiritual health, which is, of course, a kind of health that involves a practice of taking perspectives that are outside of of your experience and also within your experience. This kind of communication and how well you do with that is your spiritual health. And the definition of consciousness itself is transcendence and immanence at the same time. So, the power of this is enormous. But today, I'd like to discuss courage and something that AI has said, and I'd like to get your opinions. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if this is a forum that you want to be a part of, and welcome and bring your points of view, and appreciate it. Okay, what we have here, and perhaps you can read along with me. I don't know how clear this will be. But courage and inner empathy are interdependent, requiring the bravery to face one's own vulnerabilities, emotions, and shadows to truly connect with others. Empathy is not a weakness, but a strength that demands the courage to sit with difficult, uncomfortable feelings, allowing for deeper, more authentic, and compassionate relationships. The role of courage and empathy, facing oneself. Empathy requires the courage of acknowledging personal, often hidden feelings of fear, anxiety, or past pain rather than shying away from them. Vulnerability. It takes courage to be vulnerable and present, allowing ourselves to sit with another's pain without rushing to fix it. Authentic connection. It requires the bravery to listen deeply and understand perspectives that differ from our own, even when it is uncomfortable. Moral courage. Empathy is often the driver behind moral courage, the willingness to act on behalf of others, even when it involves risks or social consequences. All right. Well, interesting. Self-compassion, empathy for others with empathy for oneself. If we deny our own feelings, we cannot effectively understand or empathize with others. Mindfulness and reflection. Practicing mindfulness allows for the observation of fear and anxiety, creating space for empathy rather than reacting out of self-centered fear. Challenging narratives. Cultivating the inner strength to question our own assumptions. And in this article from www.maximumleapnow.com, nice to see AI citing sources, to reflect on our own at times difficult behaviors. Intersection of courage and compassion. Balanced power. Without empathy or compassion, courage can turn into aggression. transformed into a trusted, constructive force. Actionable integrity. Cultivating these qualities requires conscious daily practice, such as self-reflection or specific mindfulness exercises like this article on Abhaya Mudra from medium to manage, not suppress our emotions. Ultimately, the depth of empathy one can offer to the world is directly proportional to the courage they possess to confront their own inner reality. I hope that was interesting to you. The approach of inner empathy, as I see it, is an interplay between in the experience and out of the experience communication with the intent of love or acceptance, a sense of safety in that transcendent perspective, and a sense of full feeling and integration brought about by this, by engaging our feelings honestly and directly. And sometimes that means reliving something, but in a safe situation. What's important about inner empathy in the form that I talk about it is that it is something that is, well, it's best defined as inner artist mindfulness, because the reflection that you use, your transcendent perspectives, come from your inner artist, your imaginative capacity, and this is how it's approached in the system I talk about. This is how you love your inner child, your inner dramatic, emotional self, your more emotional perspective. And it's basically in the verbal practices I talk about, it's a use of a transcendent perspective of caregiving, which is all about compassionate empathy, and objective empathy, which is all about understanding and acceptance, and creative empathy, which is the most transcendent one of the three, which I call the storyteller. And it's up above your, what I call your dramatic timeline. Now, that inner child that you have exists within a timeline, and your inner artist, the imaginer of all you imagine, the filter of all reality that you see, which sometimes I call the brain. From this, you have compassionate empathy to help with the present experiencing the present looking into the past, and more so, and anxieties of the present looking into the future is what is helped by your inner counselor, which is your your objective empathy. And these are three dialogues. And the reason I call it spiritual is that from these forms of empathy, this is where our virtues are born. From the, not to bore you, but to give an idea of the mindfulness aspect of the practice. It is at the root of these forms of empathy that we use, in our use of language, in our social interactions. And it's basically everything. It's a way of loving your inner child in terms of feelings that you have that have language attached. And also with the mindfulness approach, it's you're using the roots of these forms of empathy to love your inner infant. I don't want you don't click away. This is something it's easier to understand when you practice it. It really is. It all snaps into place when you do the practices. But let's go into mindfulness as I teach it. This practice is all about your feelings again, but feelings that don't attach to language. And I call that your infant self, or your infant mind, or your inner infant. Pick your name. Now, what can the infant do? Just short of language and communication that way. Well, your infant self can, in association with feeling, has the power of focus, which is transcendence without words. That's just focusing on your sensations and your emotions, and not using language. And then there's the transcendent ability to play, and to play with the feelings. And this, I use something that is playful, but they also get you out of language. Now, a lot of people just repeat a phrase over and over and over, and they call it mantra yoga, right? And some do. And that will negate language and permit some bit of feeling, but getting in touch, you stay in touch with that focus and that feeling, and then removing the language while you're at play with it is a good idea, because a lot of times when you're doing mindfulness on your sensations, emotions, and so on, the brain jumps in with language. You're trying to, the Zen Buddhists call it monkey mind, Well, getting rid of the monkey mind, you can repeat a mantra over and over and over again, but that doesn't work quite as well as just making up the sounds that you say, and so that there's no language to begin with. And if you do that, and you do it with an expression of how you're feeling, that gets down to getting the transcendent love to the infant, your inner infant. So it's an expression of feeling, and the awareness that you have, whether it's focus, play, or expression, this transcendence is these transcending things are very helpful. Now, once you've removed the language in this way and gotten in touch with your feelings, to express those feelings fully, that is to, in some cases, relive what you may have experienced before you had language. I find that it's very useful to use sound, obviously, because the baby cries, but things like ah, ooh, and you can elongate these expressions, and owl also counts. So getting and using this kind of expression, and combining it with your deep breath gets you deeply in touch with your feelings, and allows you to do the reliving of things and connection to things, present to past, that is the healing. And you see, focus is the foundation of objective empathy. And play is at the foundation of the ability to create play, which is creative empathy. And the ability to express fully and deeply what happened to you so that you can fully integrate on times when your faith and love was challenged. That's what developed into compassionate empathy. Why? Because compassion is a signal that lets you know it's safe to feel. So just expressing in those ways, though, all of the transcendent perspectives are comforting in a way. They help you to have the strength that is the spiritual health that we're going to try to aim for. Each of these things, now let's go back to language again. When you're talking to your inner counselor, which is usually very helpful just to say big you and little you, just use your name and talk back and forth. So the adult in you, in this case, using understanding and guidance, and there's nothing too surprising about all of this once you understand it. These are things that have been used before, but I've put them together. So you're getting the full meal deal here of spiritual enlightenment and healing. And so, and this is for, the role of the grandparent. I keep talking about that. You grandparents out there, you are in the family structure, that part that is the storyteller. Your stories are important. Now, telling and retelling the stories that are your experiences can be very helpful in healing. But again, there's this arrow of sorts that you see where you begin with big you and little you, your objective empathy and your feelings. And then you move toward the retelling of the stories, which can give you a kind of empowerment over very difficult experiences that you might have had. And let me explain how this can work. Ruth Carter Stapleton, Jimmy Carter's little sister. What she would do in this vein was to have someone express. She focused on the negative. In my process, it can be positive. It doesn't have to be negative. As long as you're getting in touch with the feeling, you're loving your inner child, your inner infant. So that's good too. That's part of it. But what she did was, it was like one example that I've said before on this channel, but I thought was remarkable. And a good example of what she did was that she took a lady. A lady came to her that was had a very upsetting experience that she had that made her a very nervous person, and it was the experience of a burglary in her home, and she hid under a bed while it took place. Can you imagine? So the storyteller role was what Ruth did, and retold the story with a compassionate figure in the story, Jesus in this case, holding her hand and saying to her, everything's going to be all right. Well, that helped her a great deal, and it lessened the impact of that nervousness that she had because of this bad experience. It reframed the experience. You notice how all of the things I'm talking about are ways of giving you a feeling of control rather than being helpless. Being helpless is not something that's easily tolerated. And it's at the root of any form of damaged faith and love. And after that, here's a more final touch, is the exchange between perspectives of being a caregiver and also being um, your inner child, your emotional self. And this practice is something that I think is important, is to just talk to people in your mind uh, that cared about you or should have, and to people you care about or should have. And see where that goes. That gets you into a position where you're communicating with compassionate empathy, and again, the closest thing to your deep feelings. And so at that point, you are moving into a sense of control that helps you to heal from taking transcendent perspectives, and the reliving part in both the mindfulness of sensations and feelings, and the language level of communicating with your inner caregiver back and forth. This is the reliving aspect is what does the deeper healing. And but all of the things help all along the way. And why do I think of this as a spiritual practice? Well, from compassionate empathy, we get goodness. From objective empathy, we get truth. And from creative empathy, we get artfulness. The ability to not only be playful, but to create the play. And all of these things work against helplessness and give you a control in your life. And this is your spiritual health. And of course, it's something that's overlapping but connected to your mental health. And below that, of course, your physical health. So physical, mental, and spiritual, they all interrelate. The impact of this kind of these kind of practices are rather amazing. And my own parents years ago did just the language bit, and they had amazing insights. Boom, just one time. Another a friend of mine's brother, who was going through divorce, he was nearing divorce, claims that his one-time practice saved his marriage. There's a lot of other things that you need to understand. It's like, as you focus, for instance, on sensations and feelings, even at that point, you're bringing a kind of healing. It calms you down, and it brings endorphins into play. And if you want to look deeper into the effects of this kind of practice, then what you would need to consider might be practices of mindfulness and inner child work. So, this presentation, I don't expect very many people to see it, so if you did, you're very special, and would love to have your comments. And as you can see from my background, pure white. I don't have a big, studio or anything like that. So I'm working hard, and I'm hoping that you will appreciate that and join me in the labor of helping us all to create a more empathetic world. Right now, we're being challenged by a great deal of anti-empathy, and that's worldwide. So wherever you're coming from, whatever country you're in, you have to be very concerned. Without empathy, democracy dies. It's dead. You need empathy. You need these forms of empathy for democracy to work. And it takes extra effort. And it takes courage. And so you've been very courageous listening to all of this, and very generous with your time. I appreciate you. I hope you subscribe. I hope that you comment. That's important. Join in the conversation. And how are the ways that you practice some of these things? I mean, use your imagination. I mean, if you're sitting down and listening to music, that's one of the practices. You don't have to create it yourself necessarily. Use your imagination. You're probably doing a lot of these things, or some form of them. And so tell us about that. How are you approaching things? How do you relax? What helps you to cope? And I think that's an important thing to consider now. With all of these practices, it's an attempt to comfort yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that, But comfort involves a little bit of challenge, because it isn't comfortable to not have any challenge to your comfort zone. You're going to get bored. So when I say comfort zone, I'm including a little bit of your challenging of your comfort. That's the courage. And so it's the effects, like I say, consider inner child work and mindfulness practices. And it gets kind of close. A lot of the benefits of these are similar to what you would experience in this process, but this process is deeper. And it's also something that's very socially important. It tells us how families should be put together and how societies need to be put together. And it tells us just how important democracy is. Because if all the power is in a few hands, that's not going to be empathetic. No, because it's insensitive to take and take and take and not give, not be concerned that some people are in poverty. Well, you're living it up. That's not empathy. That's greed. But where does all this come from? Well, what you got to understand is that helplessness is not something that is tolerable. And working around it, your brain jumps in. It's not your choice, but your brain jumps in and creates some version of what happened to you that you feel is more attainable, better circumstance, or something symbolic of the needs that you had. But symbols can't find satiation for you. Symbolic need is not real. So this is a source of a lot of addictions. Searching for something symbolic. Something, a comfort that was necessary for you at one time, but that creates a problem within your body and your mind. It's hard with symbolic need to even understand your needs and to understand what's against your needs. That's confusing to the immune system. Think about it. Not knowing friend from foe, good from bad. So, and that's his channel. What's empathetic and what's not. And all of your creative ideas about how to deal with things that are not empathetic, standing up to power, standing up to greed, standing up to power mongering as well as a form of greed of sorts too. And you can never have enough power, you can never have enough wealth to make up for that hurt that's down inside. Now, empathy means that you understand that the people who are doing those things are spiritually sick. And they need help. And they do not need you to cater to their greed and power mongering. That will also destroy democracy. You can't cater to that. You know, you have to build empathy bridges. Now, coping with things that are not empathetic in yourself and others, that's courage. And being empathetic anyway, that is courage. And so there's this need to punish people for being spiritually sick. Now, I don't like to mingle religion too much in my channel, but it's important to note something that Jesus had to say in the Lord's Prayer. And forgive those who trespass against you as you forgive. Well, that's not literally. Forgive me of my trespasses as I forgive those who trespass against me. Put it accurately. What does that mean? It means that forgiveness is important. It means It does not mean that you trust somebody because you forgive them either. But it means that forgiveness is important. But how do you get to forgiveness? Well, you need to grieve the loss that's involved when your faith and love is damaged by someone else or, circumstances. You need to grieve and let go. But you can't grieve and let go of something you haven't fully felt. But when you fully felt something and integrated it with transcendent love, at that point, you have become less helpless, more spiritually healthy, and you can then move on to more effectively forgiving people, which again doesn't mean you trust them. The trust is earned. But forgiving, how can you forgive when you're still angry? When you haven't really worked through the grief of the loss that you felt? It's not going to be so sincere. It might still be helpful, but it's not as sincere as it's going to be if you have grieved that loss and, kind of let it go. Then it's easier to forgive. And once you're capable of forgiving more, that helps a lot with the ability to have remorse for the times that you've hurt other people. And after that remorse, what's your reward? You realize that you're no longer the person who did that or who would do that. You're born again. As I like to say at the end of my presentations, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, you're not just in a world of wonder, you are part of it. I'd like to add, learn to feel, to grieve, to forgive, and to repent. It's worth it. And always remember that you are a priceless human being. And that you have a role to play. In the family, the mother loves with her heart, and the father with his teaching. There you have compassionate and objective empathy. Above that storyline, that dramatic timeline, sits the grandparents with their ability to be more at play with kids, the children who are the focus of the family. It's about love, and it's definitely about children. And the grandparents, more able to be at play with the kids, have a wonderful role to play there, to be the storyteller and the reteller of the stories, and the break from the drama that the children need. And when the kid makes a mistake and the parents are critical, It might be the grandparent that says, hey, your daddy, your mama, they did the same thing when they were little. Don't worry about it. So, I hope that you will subscribe. I don't know. I don't expect many people to see this. But, if you would share the video, that would be nice. And definitely give your opinions and your thoughts and your other ways of helping yourself to be spiritually healthy and to create a world of greater empathy. Until next time, have a wonderful life. And remember, you have a powerful part to play. Most of my people that are watching are my age and older. And even the younger ones are in the range of grandparenthood. Thank you for watching. And it's up to you to reach the kids with this message and get them into the conversation. Thank you.